Lakewood Church was once unstoppable, packing 52,000 people into a former NBA arena every weekend, raking in $90 million a year, and turning Joel Osteen into a global celebrity. Today, half those seats are empty. Scandals and lost millions haunt its halls, and the trust that built an empire now crumbles. How did the most polished church in America go from triumph to crisis so fast? And what really broke the spell? In 2003, Lakewood Church secured a 30-year lease on Houston's former Compaq Center, a building that once echoed with NBA playoff crowds. The city handed over the keys, and Lakewood poured nearly $100 million into gutting and rebuilding the arena. 5 new interior levels rose inside the shell, with the main sanctuary alone seating 16,800 people. Offices, children's spaces, broadcast studios, and media control rooms filled the rest. Every inch was engineered for spectacle, with 2 towering high-definition screens flanking the stage, while lighting rigs and sound systems rivaled those of major concert tours. On Sundays, the transformation was complete. Tens of thousands filed through the doors each weekend, swelling attendance to 52,000 across multiple services. Staff numbers surged past 300, with teams managing everything from live television production to parking logistics. Lakewood's annual revenue hovered near $90 million, fueled by tithes, offerings, and a thriving media ministry. The scale wasn't just impressive, it was essential. Full houses and flawless production became the heartbeat of Lakewood's influence, and the arena itself stood as both a symbol and a stage for Joel Osteen's vision. At its height, the church operated less like a neighborhood congregation and more like a spiritual broadcasting powerhouse, setting a new standard for what a modern megachurch could be. Joel Osteen's name became synonymous with hope, abundance, and the promise of a better tomorrow. His rise wasn't fueled by a church salary. He stopped drawing one in 2005, but by a publishing empire. Your Best Life Now alone sold millions. And by the end of the decade, his books had moved more than 20 million copies worldwide. Speaking engagements and licensing deals added to the windfall, allowing Osteen and his family to settle into a mansion in Houston's River Oaks, a property valued at around $10 million. Osteen's sermons rarely touched on sin, suffering, or judgment. Instead, he preached a version of the prosperity gospel that centered on positivity, breakthrough, and God's favor. The message was simple. Faith and optimism could unlock material blessings and personal success. It was a theology designed for mass appeal, broad, upbeat, and non-confrontational. This approach fueled a brand that stretched far beyond Houston, making Osteen a fixture on bestseller lists and television screens. The image of generous and abundance became Lakewood's calling card. Yet as Osteen's personal wealth grew, so did the tension between the church's message and its reality. The prosperity gospel promised that God wanted everyone to thrive, but critics began to question whether the real breakthrough was happening for the congregation or just for the man on stage. In late August 2017, as Hurricane Harvey battered Houston, Lakewood Church's massive sanctuary stayed silent. While schools and smaller churches across the city threw open their doors, Lakewood posted on social media that its building was inaccessible due to flooding. But within hours, photos began circulating online, images of dry driveways, clear streets, and locked glass doors. Local reporters confirmed what the pictures showed. The main entrances and parking lots appeared untouched by water. The contradiction spread quickly. Hashtags demanding Lakewood open as a shelter trended nationwide, and the story was picked up by national news outlets. The contrast was stark. Thousands stranded in makeshift shelters, while the city's grandest church remained closed. After nearly 2 days of mounting outrage, Lakewood reversed course and opened its doors as a shelter, partnering with relief agencies and setting up cots in the lobby. Joel Osteen appeared on television, defending the decision by citing safety concerns and coordination with city officials. He insisted the lower levels had been threatened by floodwaters and that the church was always ready to help when asked. But the damage to Lakewood's reputation was already done. Viral images and defensive interviews replaced the church's carefully crafted image of generosity with a new narrative, one of hesitation and self-protection in the face of crisis. For many, the Harvey backlash was the first real crack in Lakewood's polished exterior, raising uncomfortable questions about priorities, compassion, and the true meaning of abundance. Michael Horton, a respected theologian from Westminster Seminary, California, took direct aim at Lakewood's message. In national interviews and published essays, Horton called Joel Osteen's teaching a false gospel, one that traded the foundational Christian story of sin, grace, and redemption for a formula of personal happiness and self-fulfillment. Horton argued that in Osteen's world, God becomes a life coach. Success is the main evidence of faith, and the hard edges of Christianity simply vanish. John MacArthur, another influential voice within evangelical circles, was even more blunt. He labeled Lakewood a hollow spectacle, describing Osteen as a quasi-pastor whose sermons avoided the cross, repentance, and the realities of suffering. MacArthur claimed that Lakewood's approach stripped the faith of its substance, offering instead a weekly dose of positivity designed to make people feel good about themselves, but lacking the depth that sustained believers through hardship. Inside Lakewood, staff and volunteers began to echo these concerns. Some described a growing tension between the relentless drive for flawless production and the need for real pastoral care. The pressure to deliver a seamless, upbeat experience every Sunday left little room for wrestling with doubt, grief, or the tougher questions of faith. As the message became more predictable and the show more polished, cracks appeared beneath the surface. The debate was no longer just about style. It was about whether Lakewood still offered spiritual substance, or if it had become a brand built on spectacle alone. March 2020 brought an abrupt halt to Lakewood's signature spectacle. For the first time in its history, the arena sat empty on Sundays. Stadium lights stayed dark, and the roar of the crowd was replaced by the quiet hum of broadcast equipment. Lakewood's production team kept the show running online, but the absence of thousands in the seats made every sermon feel hollow. The energy that once masked repetition and thin content was gone, leaving only the polished shell of a televised event. As weeks of lockdown stretched into months, the financial strain became impossible to ignore. Donations dropped sharply, and the finance team faced the prospect of layoffs across a staff of 350. In a move that startled many, Lakewood applied for and received $4.4 million through the Federal Paycheck Protection Program, funds intended to help struggling businesses keep workers on payroll. The decision drew immediate backlash. Critics pointed to Lakewood's history of $90 million annual revenue and Joel Osteen's personal wealth. Under mounting pressure, the church announced it would return the entire loan. The episode exposed just how vulnerable the spectacle-driven model had become. Without crowds, Lakewood's financial engine sputtered, and the reliance on outside relief made the cracks in the empire impossible to ignore. A plumber working on a routine repair at Lakewood Church in November 2021 made a discovery that would haunt the church's leadership for months. Hidden behind a bathroom wall, he found hundreds of envelopes stuffed with cash and checks, an amount later linked by police to the unsolved 2014 theft of nearly $600,000 in donations. The revelation sent shockwaves through staff and volunteers. For years, the missing funds had been a quiet embarrassment, but now the reality was impossible to ignore. Church offerings had vanished inside the building itself, unnoticed for 7 years. The episode raised urgent questions about oversight and transparency. How could such a large sum disappear and remain hidden in the very walls of a church handling tens of millions annually? Lakewood's public statements were brief. They confirmed the find, notified police, and cooperated with the investigation. But there was no detailed audit, no clear explanation of how internal controls had failed so completely. Just as the story faded from headlines, another crisis struck. On February 11, 2024, a woman entered Lakewood's main building before a Sunday service, carrying an AR-15-style rifle and accompanied by her 7-year-old son. Within moments, shots rang out in a hallway. Armed off-duty officers working security responded immediately, fatally shooting the attacker. Her son was critically wounded in the chaos, along with a bystander. The rapid response by security likely prevented a mass tragedy, yet the incident exposed a deeper vulnerability. Even with armed guards and protocols in place, no security plan could guarantee safety in a space designed to welcome thousands. The tension between openness and protection became painfully clear. Each crisis, hidden cash and open gunfire, chipped away at the church's aura of invincibility, leaving staff and congregants to wonder what else might be lurking, unseen, behind the walls. Lakewood's decline isn't just a church story, it's a warning for any institution built on spectacle over substance. As Americans grow more skeptical and demand authenticity, trust proves impossible to manufacture. In the end, faith, like credibility, can't be engineered. The future belongs to those who remember that. What do you think?